Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing Lloyd Kaufman. Lloyd, how you doing today, man?
Now that I'm with you, Ken Sledge, it's everything's come true. I can
Man,
die peacefully.
this is such an honor for me. I've been a huge fan of yours for a very long time. Whether it was the video games as a kid, the cartoon as a kid, and then the appreciation of what you do as a human being, the older I've gotten. And something I wanted to say right off the rip is the amount of intense respect that I've heard from the people that you work with. You know, you watch movies like, The Toxic Avenger, Tromeo and Juliet, Poultrygeist, and you hear all these movies, but the way that you are on set about safety and about making sure that people are taking care of each other is an amazing thing, and it's a quality that you've never lost. So everybody I've talked to that's been able to be around you in any aspect has told me that you are one of the best people to work for. So that's a great name to have in the industry.
Well, thank you for rocking the Trauma T-shirt, which is very available from traumadirect.com.
I do have the links down in the description, so that way you guys, if you need to order yourself some trauma gear, if you don't have it yet, you know where to get it. Now, alongside, you are not only a director, but a screenwriter, producer, actor. You've produced, directed over 100 films. You've either guest starred, cameoed, or been in over 50 films yourself. And I'm talking, movies like Slither, Hatchet 2, most recently Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is super amazing. What's it like for you when people come up to you and tell you how much Trauma or, the Toxic Avenger films, how much they've meant to them? What does that mean to you?
Well, you can buy an Oscar, but you can't buy me loving. And we're 50, just about 50 years old here in Tromaville, and it's the fans who are the secret sauce. They have made it possible for us to survive. We don't really make any money, so our films have a now multi-generational following, cult. So it's a narrow lane, and we stay in the Troma brand. And Michael Hers runs the company. We used to direct together, but he's taken to being our boss and CEO. And so far, we're still around. And where are you, Ken, by the way?
I'm in Michigan. I'm a Detroit boy.
Oh, great. Detroit has some great, what is it? The Motor City convention is great. And some of the, we used to go to a great video store there, but I think it's due to Blockbuster and then due to the internet conglomerates. I think it's closed, but it was terrific. Douglas. No, anyway, go on. Sorry.
Well, we actually got to, my wife and I, who is my partner in Sledgehammer Horror, we got to shake your hand last month at Horror Hound in Cincinnati, or in March, I'm sorry. We got to shake your hand when you were there at the Trauma table, and it was just an outrageous experience.
Now I remember. Now I remember your wife, right? The two of you, I do remember.
Most people remember her before me.
Well, in this case, both of you. And thank you for hanging out with us at Horror Hound. I know it was a long line, and the fans there were terrific.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, you've gained this following with movies, like I said, the Toxic Avenger films, which for a lot of us growing up, whether it was the Toxic Avengers or the Toxic Crusaders, it meant the world to us growing up. And still these movies that are still getting acclaim, like Tromeo and Juliet, Poultrygeist, these are movies that we all absolutely adore. And it's because of you that these get to happen. So that's why I wanted to bring you on, Lloyd. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit because you're a huge influence on all of us. And the way that you have been in the horror genre has been nothing short of extraordinary. But what I want to know is how horror started for you. So real quick, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Lloyd, the first horror movie that you watched was?
The first horror movie I watched was Frankenstein. Again, I'm a bit older than you folks. James Whale and I used to date, and he showed me his rough cut, and it was brilliant. Now, the good news is you can see all the Troma movies on our SVOD channel, Troma Now. You can get a free app and see it on Roku or Google or Fire Stick, pretty much all the major platforms, and it's free, absolutely free the first month. A lot of interviews with people like James Gunn and Trey Parker, and we very much discuss Frankenstein quite a bit. There's numerous interviews and make your own damn movie lessons. And I think Frankenstein and Charlie Chaplin were a big influence on the Toxic Avenger, as you can probably see. So
Yeah.
I'd have to give a lot of credit to Frankenstein.
Well, and you were talking about, the SVOD and how you have all that available through streaming. I have those links down in the description as well, along with the
Oh,
store.
thank
So
you.
that way
Thank you.
you guys can go down there. I have it. Me and my wife are huge fans. And like I said, you get behind the scenes interviews, you get all these different things. Trey Parker, Orgasmo, James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, all these different things. And without a movie like Frankenstein, like you said, Toxie may not exist if we didn't have a movie like Frankenstein, because those Universal
Certainly.
monsters really paved the way for what was able to come in the future. Now, do you remember which scene it was from Frankenstein that really stuck with you the most?
I think the whole film, the poor monster, we always felt sorry. Michael and I co-directed Frankenstein, but we always felt sorry for the monster. He didn't do anything really, and all the villagers go after him with pitchforks and want to blacklist him and kill him. It's sort of what happens to any artist who is slightly visionary or slightly controversial. Either you get shunned or you get blacklisted, or the oligopoly destroys you. So we could relate to Frankenstein on many levels, and of course the scene, I don't remember which Frankenstein it was, but where the little girl gives him a flower on the side of the water. And which one was that? The Bride or I can't remember which one.
That was the original Frankenstein.
Oh, it was in the first one. Yeah, poor monster. So Toxie has a big part of his legacy from Frankenstein, and his blind blonde bimbo girlfriend is directly influenced by Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, and I was into a heavy revisiting of Preston Sturges before we made Toxic Avenger, and the town of Tromaville. We have a fond satire of American town life, Americana, and so there's quite a bit that went into Toxic Avenger, which really is not a horror film. I don't think you get scared. Well, if you're 5 years old, you might get scared, and there are plenty of grandmothers who accidentally brought home the video cassette of Toxic Avenger, stuck it in the machine, and then walked away while their 3 and 5-year-old grandchildren were accumulating $50,000 in psychiatry fees. So they would think, because we had the cartoons at the same time, not at the same time, but shortly thereafter. And the poster of Toxic Avenger does look a bit, well, it's a painting, and it clearly says, scenes of violent and disgusting nature, but people did mistake it for a cartoon.
Oh, and I believe that's how I seen it for the first time as well. And I believe I started with the Crusaders, and that made me more curious as to the background of
I think
everything
most
else.
people, many people of your generation watched the Toxic Crusaders. I mean, now we have grandparents who are trauma fans and horror. I mean, at Horror Hound, there were people even older than I who were standing in line, and they barely could stand up. But they had to wait their turn. I don't do any front seat, back seats, and then they had little young kids who had the cartoon, the action figures and things like that I autographed, and I don't charge for photographs or signatures because, again, Michael and I own it we owe it to the fans, and I think it's not a good thing for people to charge children or teenagers or anybody for their lunch money for worthless signature. I think if an actor is hungry and needs the money, okay, but I don't think that the guy who plays Freddy needs to charge however much he charges. In fact, I think at Horror Hound, I've been told that he didn't have a big line, and that my line was infinitely longer. Which probably, if it was one of the conventions, But if that's true, it's because I do free photos and free photo ops and free signatures, which means that I'm not that popular with the management of the conventions, because that they get money off of that stuff. But what are you going to do? Very often, that's I'm not invited to every all the big conventions.
But
Although
what I love about that is
we do attend about 30 of them per year. We've got Ron Mackey, who's head of our conventions, and we pay for our booths, and or we get them for free or whatever. And sometimes they get a fee, but for the most part, we just go and have a good time with the fans and sell our wonderful merchandise, t-shirts and toys and posters and all sorts of goodies. In Las Vegas, we're going to have some new merchandise, and we'll see what happens.
See, and what makes me most proud about that is, like you said, there's a lot of people that go there and they go there to make a lot of money. You go there for your genuine love of your fans, and I'll sign that for you. I'll take pictures with you, and you're right. There was no cost, there was no fee. We got to come up, we got to shake your hand, we got to take a picture with you, and it's one of those things where you're almost shocked because you don't get that anymore. People, the reason they do everything is for money, and you do it for your love, your passion, and everything that all these things that you've done throughout your life. That the fans are the reasons that happened, and it's really, really refreshing to still hear somebody talk about it like that, because you don't get that anymore.
Well, again, I worked with Kirk Douglas very, very closely, and he never charged for an interview, and he probably could have, but he saw it as part of his job. If he was having dinner and some old bag went up to him and wanted an autograph, he was very gracious. He wasn't so gracious with me, but he was very. But I learned a hell of a lot from the guy, and he's one of the most courageous people I ever met. But he saw it as his job. Yes, madam, and he signed the thing, and to be very charming. And there's a great documentary with Orson Welles too, called "You'll Hate Me When I'm Dead," about his last film. And behind this, they have cameras behind the scenes as he's directing this. He's got people like John Huston and other stars, and he's screaming at them and yelling at them. But when he's out in the public and he's at a dinner in a tuxedo, he's so charming, and people come up to him for autographs. He last thing in his mind is charging for his autograph.
Right.
It's part of the business. It's part of the being a professional.
And
but
that's something. Professionalism is something you've always been about.
Well, safety, entertainment, some political and social satire, and survival.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, and I mean, you were talking a little bit ago about with Frankenstein, that scene with the little girl. Where Frankenstein goes up and she's picking the flowers, and they're throwing the petals in the river, and Frank picks her up. Frankenstein's monster throws her into the river, and she ends up dying. And shortly after that, you have the scene of the dad walking her through town, her dead body. And at the time, that was super controversial to be killing a kid like that. Now,
sure.
You flash forward ahead to Toxic Avenger, and obviously I don't want to spoil anything for those of you that haven't seen the Toxic Avenger, but we do have certain scenes of children-oriented things. Do you think that a lot of Frankenstein played into a lot of what you were doing with a lot of the Troma films at the time?
Probably still. Frankenstein monsters probably still, or James Whale had a good sense of humor. The movie with the dinner party and his other Frankenstein. They were dark and very humorous to some extent. What's the one where there's a dinner party and one scary night? It's called, or one dark night. Anyway, it's scary, but also very amusing. Kind of bougie people having a dinner. I saw it so long ago, I don't even remember the title. But I would say James Whale was a pretty big. And by the way, hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm. Speaking of James Whale, we had Albania. We shot about 8 days in Albania. We had Albanian trained whales jumping over the boat to the ship and defecating on people. There was something called what's it called? The whales get together and defecate in the water, and it helps the ecological system. But because the people on board were so obnoxious, the whales jumped over, like Flipper, not Flipper, the other one, Willie. the
Free
famous shot
Willy.
of Free Willy. But we shot in Albania where we could get the trained whales. And believe it or not, when they defecate, there's corn in their duty. It's quite interesting.
See,
Anyway, I
you
don't want
guys
to be a
came here.
spoiler, but hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm. We went back to James Whale may have influenced just the idea that we had whales and not starfish.
See, and there you go. You came here to learn what Lloyd's first horror movie was, and you stuck around to learn that they had corn in the shit when they were doing Shakespeare's shitstorm. So, the amount of things you can learn from somebody like Lloyd is just never ending. And I also know you're a huge Tupac fan.
Yeah. By the way, we're very close to completing the Blu-ray of hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm. We played it in a number of theaters, and the audience always fills up. It opened at the Museum of the Moving Image in New York, which is a big deal for a movie called hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm, and we don't put an asterisk in the title.
Right.
New York Times reviewed the movie favorably, and also I mean, they didn't do a long review, but at least they reviewed it, and they didn't put an asterisk. They called it hashtag. They used the hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm, and were pretty kind. So then we had 2 weeks in New York, 2 weeks in LA, and maybe 50 or 60 theaters sprinkled throughout the country. And it's still Las Vegas this weekend. We'll have the big Las Vegas screening of hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm, along with 5 or 6 other movies, including the original Toxic Avenger at the Sci-Fi Center. So it's going to be quite a weekend.
Yeah. And you just talked about, the fact that, the Blu-rays are coming. Now, can people pre-order or order those from the Troma website?
Not yet. We usually want to wait till our Blu-rays are completed, but I believe that very soon you may be able to sign up for the new. In fact, you can, if you go to steam.com, you can put a wish list for the Toxic Crusaders retroware video game that's in just about finished. Terrific, amazing. And I think they've got about 100,000 people who've wish listed it. That's retroware. I think we're going to have the 4 Toxie TA in 4K. That box set of all the Toxies in 4K. I believe that will be completed very soon, and I think you'll be able to. I don't know. It may already be pre-sold through MVD. But as soon as we know more, we'll put it on our website. But I think MVD will have a pre-sale that is going to be a good savings. Again, I'm not, we're not we're not sure, and at least I'm not totally au courant about what's going on. But it's going to be terrific. TA in 4K is wonderful. The new video game is spectacular with the Toxic Crusaders. It's got Tromaville all over it too. It's not just Toxie and his buddies. You'll see Nukem High and Troma. Kind of 50 years of callbacks to Troma.
That's fucking amazing, man.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
So, something else I wanted to bring up with that, I talked earlier about how I have all these links down in the description. I also have the Troma and all of Lloyd's social media links, so that way you can stay up to date when these things are coming out. You should be following him already. You should be following Troma already, but make sure you're following them so you can make sure that you are up to date when all these 4Ks, all these new releases are coming out, because hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm is something I'm very excited about. I can't wait for you guys to see it. From all the reviews that I've seen, it's going to be something that blows us away. And Lloyd, I do appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with me for a little bit. I know you don't have all the time in the world. One last question for you. We've talked about the first horror movie you watched, Lloyd, and what that movie meant to you, being Frankenstein. But I always end it with the same question. Usually I have my buddy Ghostface here, but he's off shooting Scream 7. So what Ghostface usually asks in the Scream movies are, what's your favorite scary movie? So that's what my last question is for you. What would you say your favorite horror movie of all time is?
Well, I think it, again, would be Frankenstein, but the scariest movie, and when I saw it, maybe I was younger, Evil Dead 2 was a scary movie. I thought that was genuinely scary, without a doubt. And I saw it during the day. So, and Evil Dead 1 was scary as hell. So Sam Raimi, who I think, yeah, I've been friends with him. He's a Troma fan, and well, he's from Detroit. He drives. We both had we had lunch, and we both
Detroit boys,
great.
man.
That's terrific. Good, good. We
So
both
Lloyd,
showed
I
up with
again want to
giant
say
Cadillacs. He loves American cars, and I happened to have one that summer, and he both had these huge Cadillacs. He knew how to drive it, though. I didn't.
see, whenever I watch anything like that, whenever I would see the Evil Dead movies, I would always go back to the Delta, watching the Delta drive up in the leaves. And it's just a scene that I've always loved. So I want to remind everybody to make sure you're clicking the links in the description to follow Troma and follow Lloyd. Lloyd, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, make sure you're clicking the links down in the description. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. It means the world to us. And until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken's fans.